Yettishar, Yettishar Uyghur, Yi-share Chinese, Yettishar Han Guo, meaning 7 cities or Heptapolis, commonly known as Kashgaria, was a short-lived Sunni Muslim Turkic state that existed in Xinjiang between 1865 and 1877 during the Dungan Revolt against the Qing dynasty. The 7 cities were Kashgar, Khotan, Yarkand, Yangishahr, Aksu, Kucha and Korla. In 1873, the state was recognized by the Ottoman Empire as a vassal. On 18 December 1877, the army of the king entered Kashgar, bringing the state to an end. History. Background. By the 1860s, Xinjiang had been under Qing rule for a century. The area had been conquered in 1759 from the Dzungar Khanate, whose core population, the Warets, subsequently became the targets of genocide. However, as Xinjiang consisted mostly of semi-arid or desert lands, these were not attractive to potential Han settlers except some traders, so other people such as Uyghurs settled in the area. The ethnic group known today as Uyghur people was not known by the term Uyghur up to the 20th century. The Uzbeks that dwelled close to present-day Xinjiang were collectively called Andijanis or Kakandis, while the Uyghurs in the Tarim Basin were known as Turki, probably due to their language. There were also Uyghur immigrants residing in Ili area that were called Taranchi. The modern term Uyghur was assigned to this ethnic group by the newly created Soviet Union in 1921 at a conference in Tashkent. As a result, sources from the period of the Dungan Revolt make no mentions of Uyghurs. The conflict was mainly an ethnic and religious war fought by members of the Muslim Hui and other Muslim ethnic groups in China's Shaanxi. The conflict led to a recorded 20.77 million deaths due to migration and war-related death. Many war immigrants also died from starvation on their journey to safety. Thousands of Muslim refugees from Shaanxi fled to Gansu. Some of them formed significant battalions in eastern Gansu, intending to reconquer their lands in Shaanxi. While the Hui rebels were preparing to attack Gansu and Shaanxi, Yaqub Beg, an ethnic Uzbek or Tajik commander from the Kakand Khanate, fled from the Khanate in 1865 after losing Tashkent to the Russians, settled in Kashgar, and soon managed to take complete control of Xinjiang. Establishment of Yettishar. Yaqub Beg was born in the town of Piskent, in the Khanate of Kakand, now in Uzbekistan. In rebellions from 1864, the Kakandi foreigner Yaqub Beg conquered the Tarim Basin. Yaqub came to power after the Chinese were driven out. The Chinese only became important when they returned with an army. The Khan of Kakand had some claim over Barzug Khan as a subject, but did nothing in practice. Russia and England never recognized Yaqub as a legal ruler. Yaqub entered into relations and signed treaties with the Russian Empire and Great Britain, but when he tried to get their support against China, he failed. Yaqub Beg was given the title of Athalik Gazi, champion father of the faithful, by the Amir of Bukhara in 1866. The Ottoman Sultan gave him the title of Amir. Popularity. Yaqub Beg's rule was unpopular among the natives, with one of the local Kashgaris, a warrior and a chieftain's son, commenting during the Chinese rule, "There was everything, but there is nothing now." There was also a falling off in trade. Yaqub Beg was disliked by his Turkic Muslim subjects, burdening them with heavy taxes and subjecting them to a harsh version of Islamic Sharia law. Korean historian Kim Ha-dong points out the fact that his disastrous and inexact commands failed the locals, and they in turn welcomed the return of Chinese troops. Qing dynasty general Zhuo Zongtang wrote that the Andijanis are tyrannical to their people. Government troops should comfort them with benevolence. The Andijanis are greedy in extorting from the people. Government troops should rectify this by being generous. Downfall 1877. In the late 1870s, the king decided to reconquer Xinjiang, with General Zhuo Zongtang as its commander. As Zhuo moved into Xinjiang to crush the Muslim rebels under Yaqub Beg, He was joined by Dungan Qufia Sufi General Ma Anliang and his forces, which were composed entirely out of Muslim Dungan people. Ma Anliang and his Dungan troops fought alongside Zhuozongtang to attack the Muslim rebel forces. In addition, General Dong Fuxing had an army of both Hans and Dungan people, and his army took the Kashgar and Khotan areas during the reconquest. Also, the Shaanxi Jedemu Dungan generals Kuiwei and Hua Dakai, who had defected back to the king, joined Zhuozongtang and led the attack on Yaqub Beg's forces in Xinjiang. General Zhuo implemented a conciliatory policy toward the Muslim rebels, pardoning those who did not rebel and those who surrendered if they had joined in only for religious reasons. If rebels assisted the government against the rebel Muslims, they received rewards. In contrast to General Zhuo, the Manchu leader Dorunga sought to massacre all the Muslims and saw them all as the enemy. Zhuo also instructed General Zhang Yao that the Andajanis are tyrannical to their people. Government troops should comfort them with benevolence. The Andajanis are greedy in extorting from the people. The government troops should rectify this by being generous, telling him to not mistreat the Turkic Muslim natives of Xinjiang. Zhuo wrote that the main targets were only the die-hard partisans and their leaders, Yaqub Beg and Vayanhu. The natives were not blamed or mistreated by the king troops. A Russian wrote that soldiers under General Liu acted very judiciously with regard to the prisoners whom he took. His subordinates were the Han Chinese General Liu Jintang and Manchu Jin Shun. Liu Jintang's army had modern German artillery, which Jin Shun's forces lacked, and neither was Jin's advance as rapid as Liu's. After Liu bombarded Kumu Tai, Muslim rebel casualties numbered 6,000 dead, while Bayan was forced to flee for his life. Thereafter king forces entered Ürümqi unopposed. Zhuo wrote that Yaqub Beg's soldiers had modern Western weapons but were cowardly. Mohammed Ayub with the Dungan detachments took refuge in the possessions of Russia. The power of the Qing dynasty was restored over all of Xinjiang except for the Ili region, which was returned by Russia to China under the Treaty of St. Petersburg. Death of Yaqub Beg. The manner of Yaqub Beg's death is unclear. The Times of London and the Russian Turkestan Gazette both reported that he had died after a short illness. The contemporaneous historian Musa Sayrami 1836-1917 states that he was poisoned on May 30, 1877, in Korla by the former Hakam local city ruler of Yarkand, Niyaz Hakim Beg, after the latter concluded a conspiracy agreement with the Qing Chinese forces in Jungaria. However, Niyaz Beg himself, in a letter to the Qing authorities, denied his involvement in the death of Yaqub Beg and claimed that the Kashgarian ruler committed suicide. Some say that he was killed in battle with the Chinese. Modern historians, according to Kim Hadong, think that natural death of a stroke is the most plausible explanation.